On October 11, 1973, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, two best friends who were fishing on the banks of the Pascagoula River suddenly found themselves in a terrifying situation. They claimed that they had just seen a hovering flying saucer and were then taken on board by humanoid robots with claws for hands. Their story of terror became known as the Pascagoula Abduction, which is now considered one of America's most famous alien encounter cases. So, what exactly happened to these men? Let's find out. It was a Saturday night in October 1973. Charles Hickson, a 41-year-old shipyard worker, and his friend Calvin Parker, 24, decided to go fishing along the Pascagoula River in southern Mississippi. The two men had gone to the river many times before and were well familiar with its banks. There wasn't much in the way of streetlights, but the moon was shining brightly, making it easy to see. They cast their lines into the water and settled in for a night of fishing. But the quiet tranquility of the night was soon shattered by an ominous buzzing sound. It grew louder and louder until it filled their ears. The men looked up and saw a strange glowing object descending toward them. Hickson and Parker described it as an oval-shaped craft about 40 feet in diameter, resembling a large metallic discus hovering just above the tree line. As it descended, they could see three strange humanoid figures emerging from it. According to Hickson, the beings appeared to be around 3 feet tall, with long arms and claw-like hands. They seemed to float rather than walk, moving slowly toward the men. Hickson would later say that he felt an overwhelming sense of dread and fear wash over him. At first, he and Parker tried to run off, but their legs felt heavy like they were filled with lead. Then they both collapsed onto the ground, paralyzed with terror. The last thing Hickson remembered was a bright white light filling his vision before everything went black. When Hickson came to, he found himself inside a dark, windowless room. Across from him lay Calvin, both of them still on the ground, but their surroundings had changed dramatically. Gone was the familiar riverbank. In its place was a dark, windowless room with smooth, shiny walls. The only light came from a humming, pulsating device in the center of the room, which resembled a giant mechanical eye. The eye-like device began to glow brighter and brighter until Hickson blacked out again. When he regained consciousness, he noticed that Calvin had vanished. All he could see was the strange eye-like device. Suddenly, the device started to rotate, emitting a blinding flash of light. Before Hickson knew what was happening, he was enveloped in a brilliant white beam and shot through the air like a rocket. He screamed in terror as he hurtled towards a point of light at the end of a tunnel. Just when he thought he couldn't take any more, the sensation abruptly stopped. Hickson found himself back on the riverbank next to Calvin. The UFO was nowhere to be seen. In a panic, Hickson sprung to his feet and ran toward the nearest house, frantically knocking on the door and yelling for someone to call the police. Moments later, he heard sirens wailing in the distance. The two friends had managed to escape from whatever had been going on in that bizarre room, but they had no idea what had happened to them or why. Once the sheriff arrived at the scene, he questioned Hickson and Parker separately to get their stories. However, the men's stories were so strange and unbelievable that the sheriff didn't take them seriously. He figured they had probably gotten high on some illicit substances and were seeing things. The sheriff did question them further. He also made sure to record their testimonies in secret without them knowing it, and the results shocked him. What the sheriff heard were two men, shaken and terrified, describing a terrifying encounter with an extraterrestrial craft and its creepy alien passengers. Far from being intoxicated, Hickson and Parker recounted the horrifying experience in detail, describing the buzzing sound, the floating beings, and the mysterious room with the glowing eye. Their story was so vivid and their fear so palpable that it became clear to the sheriff that they were not making up the story. The sheriff was convinced that these men had really witnessed something unexplainable. As word of the alleged abduction spread, people from all over the country contacted Hickson and Parker, eager to hear more details about their harrowing tale. Newspapers picked up the story, and soon it was known across the nation. Many doubted the validity of their claims, believing that they were simply a pair of uneducated fishermen who had concocted the story to gain attention. However, there were plenty of people who believed them. Hickson and Parker even agreed to take polygraph tests to prove their story. They both passed the test, which added credibility to their claims. This baffling incident raised many questions. What had really happened to Hickson and Parker? Had they actually been abducted by aliens? Or was there another explanation for what they had experienced? The sheriff, who had initially dismissed their claims, now found himself caught between belief and skepticism. With mounting public interest, pressure was on to find answers. After the alleged abduction, the lives of Hickson and Parker took a dramatic turn. They faced ridicule and skepticism from those who doubted their story. But they also gained a devoted following among UFO enthusiasts and alien believers. Throughout their lives, they stuck to their story, claiming that their ordeal was very real. Hickson continued to work at the shipyard, but he often spoke to anyone who would listen about his encounter with the aliens. Parker, however, struggled to cope with the trauma of the alleged event. He suffered from nightmares and anxiety, and he eventually had to quit his job. In 1976, 4 years after the alleged abduction, Calvin Parker sadly passed away at the age of 28 due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Many believe that he couldn't live with the trauma of his alien encounter, though his passing left a lot of unanswered questions. Despite the tragedy, Hickson remained steadfast in his belief that they had encountered aliens. He continued to speak publicly about the event until his death in 1989. There have been many theories proposed to explain the Pascagoula abduction case. Some claim that Hickson and Parker fabricated the story for attention, while others believe that they genuinely witnessed an extraterrestrial encounter. There is evidence to support both sides of the argument. The secret police recording of their statements shows two men in a state of shock and terror, which many believe would be impossible to fake. Additionally, they passed lie detector tests, which further bolsters their claims. However, skeptics argue that the men could have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that their story was a product of their imagination. There are even theories that suggest the men may have accidentally stumbled upon a secret military operation or a crashed UFO. The United States Air Force even launched an investigation into the case, but they were unable to come up with any evidence to support any of these theories. The Pascagoula abduction case remains one of the most famous and debated UFO cases in history. It's a perplexing mystery that continues to captivate people around the world. Some believe that Hickson and Parker really did witness an extraterrestrial encounter, while others remain skeptical. Perhaps we may never know the full truth of what happened on that fateful night in 1973. But one thing is certain. The Pascagoula abduction will continue to be a source of fascination and debate for years to come. What do you think happened to these men? Do you think they were telling the truth about their alien encounter? Or do you believe there is another explanation for what they experienced? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to join our incredible community of viewers. Together, let's continue to explore the mysteries of the universe and beyond. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.